All right, all right. What's going on, family? Shalom, shalom. Real quick, not our normal topic of discussion. Wanted to jump in real quick, give the people an update on what's going on, boots on the ground. There's still a lot of unrest in the city of Henderson and in North Carolina in general, and really nationwide. As you read through the comments, I'm gonna read some of the comments today and let y'all know what's going on. But let me give you a quick summary of what's going on. We also gonna go into a news article here, right? That shows you that there were more details that came out in the case of Javion Magee's untimely death, right? So we're gonna go into that real quick. Uh, I'm just gonna sit here and read through the article, give you some commentary, and I'm gonna start with a brief summary, and then we also have a video that I can play for you as well. So this is a quick summary of what's going on, right? So the case of Javion Magee, a 21-year-old black male, has garnered attention following his tragic death on September the 11th near Henderson, North Carolina. Authorities responded to a call detailing the discovery of his body at the scene, and here are some of the details that the sheriff reported. His body was found sitting with his back against a tree, a rope around his neck. The top of the rope was in a tree limb. There was not a knot in the rope, according to the sheriff. They believe he purchased an item that was used around his neck, right? He had no ID on him. His truck was found in an adjacent lot to where the body was located. No signs of foul play were reported by the sheriff's office. No implication that anyone else was involved. His body was not disfigured, so he was recognizable. And no bruises were reported to be on his body. After the autopsy, it was found that light hemorrhaging was in his neck, right, in the neck area, and he had a broken bone in his neck, right? So this indicates that he was indeed killed by hanging, allegedly, right? But let's keep going. Surveillance video shows Javion leaving Walmart with a rope that he purchased hours before his body was found. The autopsy shows no signs of struggle with the outside person, right? And the family was confirmed to not be able to view their loved one. Now, this is concerning primarily because of what the sheriff came out and said. When the original report came out that this brother's body was found hanging, the sheriff rushed to media to say there is no lynching in Vance County. Now, the sheriff is a man of color, right? His name is Curtis Brain. Okay, he's the sheriff of Vance County. Now, I want to read the article in the newspaper as well. It says right here, it says a Vance County Sheriff's Office search warrant details Javion Magee's last steps before his death. The VCSO received a call for service at 10:10 a.m. on that day after receiving possible suicide call. The warrant reads, the caller said a guy hung himself in a tree. ABC 11 reported the same thing, saying that the person who called in the 911 call reported that somebody hung himself in a tree. Now, generally speaking, I want to comment on this real quick. Generally speaking, when a person is killed by way of hanging, you wouldn't generally right off the bat assume that that person hung themselves, right? You wouldn't assume that. But let's go back to the details of what the sheriff said. And I just want to point out a couple of things that don't make sense. The sheriff said that his body was found sitting with his back against a tree, similar to how I'm sitting in this chair now, right? But his back was against a tree. And the rope was around his neck, but the rope was not tied. And the rope was connected to the tree still. If a person hangs themselves and is attempting to kill themselves, they're not going to hang themselves in a way where their feet touch the ground, because that will relieve the pressure from your body hanging. And if at any point you change your mind, it's easy to do so, right? Now, they're trying to say that he hung himself, but then when he was found, the rope was around his neck and there was no knot in the rope. So only two options exist. Either he hung himself and it fell, and when you see the tree that he allegedly was hung from, you're not going to believe that. Or somebody was there to remove his body after he had already been hung or already been strangled, right? So it's definitely some interesting things going on here, and I'm also going to show you additional information that they came out with today that was supposed to clear this all up, right? That was supposed to provide extra evidence into what really happened. But let's keep going. Preliminary findings suggested the cause of Javion's death is still unknown. If it's a clear and apparent suicide by way of hanging, how is his way of death still unknown? And if the sheriff has already gone live and said there was no lynching in Vance County, how can he come to that conclusion if the way of death is not known yet? It's not adding up, right? The investigation led by the sheriff's office is ongoing, with law enforcement officials diligently examining all aspects of the case, including potential motives and circumstances surrounding the incident. Sheriff Curtis Brain has addressed the community concerns regarding the classification incident. Quote, the Vance County Sheriff's Department is not withholding anything, and the case has been handed over to Vance County Sheriff's Office and the North Carolina SBI, which is the State Bureau of Investigation. Where some people are concerned comes from the conflicting information provided by Sheriff Brain. He says that the investigation is ongoing and also states there is not a lynching in Vance County. The young man was not dangling from a tree. He was not swinging from a tree. The rope was wrapped around his neck. It was not a noose. There was not a knot in the rope. Therefore, it was not a lynching here in Vance County. Now, what I would like to challenge is this, right? Yeah, Con, I got you, King. What I would like to challenge is this. If there was no knot in the rope, how does that dictate or necessitate that there was no lynching in Vance County? That don't make no sense. Just because a man was not swinging from a tree, that equals that there was no lynching. And this is an official press release from the sheriff of Vance County, right? Many people are saying that this information, you jumped out and said that too quick, because how are you able to determine that before the autopsy was concluded and prior to the way of death being concluded? We're gonna get to the bottom of it, right? What we got here, as Captain Judah's jumping in, what we got here in the bottom is a link to a petition, right? Everybody who has the opportunity. What's going on, King?
Shalom. Can y'all hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Hey, so everybody who has the opportunity, go into the link in the bio, click on that petition and sign that petition. And I'm going to go through what that petition is about, but let me read a couple more details real quick. It says, members of the national community are concerned by the troubling historical pattern of racial cases resulting in the deaths of Black men, the presence of conflicting information in the current investigation, and the lack of federal and state support for the passage of an anti-lynching bill that would hold organizations linked to these incidents responsible. These factors underscore the necessity for thorough investigation and transparency in cases involving potential hate crimes and racial violence, right? Dr. Candace Matthews, the family spokesperson, came on the news and said the family spoke to the medical examiner on Friday in regard to the preliminary results. Based on the information provided, the family still suspects foul play due to there being nothing under his fingernails and hands. He did have a broken neck with blood around his neck, which came from, they also feel that this investigation is no way transparent, right? So, hey, once again, we want to tap in on this, see what the people think. We probably gonna be hitting boots on the ground to see what the people in North Carolina are saying. What you got to say about it, Judah?
Hey, yo, so two things real quick, and I know you was going into it.
Yeah.
I might have missed it, but I heard you say that it was an apparent hanging, air quotations,
right,
and his back was found rested against the tree. There was no knot. It said the rope was around his neck. It was also tied to the tree.
Yeah, correct.
And there was no knot in the rope that was around his neck, the part that was around his neck?
Right.
How?
Exactly.
Makes no sense. And I was listening, and that's why I was like, yo, I want everybody who's watching this to think about this. The reason why they tie those nooses the way they do is because those are self-tightening knots.
Correct.
There's no way pressure, you're going to put a weak knot that can slip around somebody's neck so the pressure from the fall loosens it. That doesn't
Right.
make any sense. He would
Right.
have just fell out the noose and then just would have fell on the ground.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, you telling me, and you said if we see the tree that we wouldn't believe that he was hung from the tree, correct?
Yeah, correct.
You telling me so he just so happened to fall perfectly and just rest up against the tree?
And rest up against the tree.
That don't make no sense.
Nah, it
That
don't.
doesn't make any sense. So this is looking like a September 11th that black folks don't need to forget. This is what it's looking like. They can have the Alamo and the Twin Towers and all of that. It looks like this is going to be a September 11th that we can't forget because it's not adding up. Last thing, and I'm going to get off here.
No, you
Last
good.
thing, we need to know when re-election is for this sheriff because it will tell us a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Is it coming up?
Mm.
I just need to know.
Mm.
I just need to know. Because we know, listen, Rich Homie Quan, this rapper who just passed, I watched the funeral, and it was a whole lot of political stunts being done at that funeral. It was these mayors making it Rich Homie Quan Day, Rich Homie Quan Memorial Day, sheriffs presenting plaques, and Kamala Harris and Biden are sending their condolences from the White House and all of this stuff. They didn't even do that when Nipsey died. But we know what's happening right about now. These elected officials are starting to having to do their campaigns to get back in office.
Correct.
They got to be 100% awake and understand what's going on and why these moves are being made. I just want to put that out there.
Nah, that's a good point. I want to comment to that before you jump off. Another thing to think about is what's going to be put in place if it comes out, right? And that's a part of the reason for the petition. But if it comes out that all the information did not clearly come out or was not fairly presented by the sheriff's office, what are we as a people going to do to hold him accountable? Or are we just going to get mad, go on social media, call for his job? But that just leaves room for the next person to step into that position and placate to the criminal organizations and the behind the door organizations that are carrying things like this out, man. So we need to put something in place that's going to systematically change the way that these people are prosecuted and the way that these cases are being reported.
Hey, Con, and you know what? A lot of Israelites, and this is wise. I say this, right? Me and my mother was having this conversation. And me and one of my high school friends was having this conversation. When it comes to talking about politics, there's nothing that these presidents do that directly affect my life. Nothing. They don't make me poorer. They don't make me richer. It's all about what I decide to do and through the faith in the Most High and what he allows to happen in my life. Nothing directly affects my life. But I will say, some of these elected officials are the reasons why, and my dad used to point this out all the time, the streets in my neighborhood had potholes in them, and then you go to the other side 10 minutes, and it's freshly paved roads.
Yep.
So while is it Deuteronomy 17 where it says that you're not supposed to put, pretty much paraphrasing, you're not supposed to set a king over you that's not of the children of thy people.
That's right.
Right? And we know that the president is the king, air quotation, of this country. Right? However, it's important to know who your superintendent is.
Yeah, that's right.
It's important to know who's in these different offices that really affect how things move on a local level.
Correct.
So we got to be wise, man. We got to be a little bit wiser, man. I understand the presidency and all that stuff. That mess don't make or break nothing.
Right.
But why does your school have 20-year-old school books or 10-year-old school books, and this school gets new books every 2 years? Why is that? because
Yeah.
somebody locally is making those decisions.
Hey, why is your school allowing drag queen reading time? Right?
Why?
So
Why
these
is
things happen because the locally elected officials or the locally selected officials, right? These
Yeah,
people are in positions of power to make those decisions over your life.
that's right.
Hey, and
So
that's why we have to put pressure on this case, y'all. Y'all can't sit back and we can't let no more Trayvon Martins happen. We can't let no more Philando Castiles happen. Every time something like this happens, we got to pop out and show them,
right,
right?
right
And
up.
if it happen in your city, it can't happen in your city.
That's a fact.
Look at
That's a
this.
fact.
And I got a precept to go with this real quick. And we already know where I'm going. Zechariah chapter 11 and verse 5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich. And their shepherd pities not them. Pities them not, Salakia. Hey, one more thing too, right? Before I know you probably about to jump off, but real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So ABC 11 reported the call. And this is a couple of questions I want y'all to think about real quick. If the police knew he was hung in a tree and he still had the rope around his neck, why was the cause of death not certain? Why are they not saying the cause? If he had contusions in his neck and his neck is broken and the rope is actively still around his neck, and the police call came in and said, yo, this dude hung himself in the tree, why is the cause of death not 100% at this point?
Hey, and we can't act like this is asinine for us to believe, because we have examples of black men who are hung on trees, declared a suicide with their hands tied
With their hand,
behind their back.
that's right.
Niggas gotta be Houdini for
Good
that to
night.
happen.
That's right.
So we just crazy because this man hands won't tie behind his back. Like, come on, bro. Anything could have happened, man.
Now, what they trying to do is they're trying to lean on the fact that he went to Walmart and bought that rope.
Yep.
And I can speak to this because I'm a former truck driver, right? Truck drivers use rope for multiple reasons. You could be tying a load down. You could be making sure your doors stay closed, right? One brother brought up a good example. He said that truck drivers sometimes will have a key that fits many different trucks. Depending on the make and model of that lock that's on the truck, many different keys may fit your truck. So if you at a truck stop with multiple truckers, it would be wise or it will behoove you to have a secondary lock. Sometimes brothers will use a rope and tie the inside of the door closed and attach it to the steering wheel or tie it to the other door to make sure nobody can get in their truck, right? While they in the truck sleep or whatever the case may be. So just because the brother bought the rope, that does not mean that we can now dismiss this. Okay, so this is another thing. They released new information today. So the sheriff has been under a lot of pressure to release new information. ABC News reported the statement that the sheriff released. And I'm going to pull it up here. So basically, the only new information that we get is the timeline on what happened to Javion after he left the Walmart. Okay? So it's a full timeline that walks you through step by step everything that they can prove that he did based on the cameras and all that. The only new information that came out in that statement by the sheriff's office that was posted on ABC 11 is that he saw a homeless guy, an unnamed homeless guy outside of Walmart. This is not caught on camera. This is just what they're saying happened. There was an unnamed homeless guy outside of Walmart, and he gave him $225. And the homeless guy was like, hey, thank you. And he was like, hey, if I have more, I'll give it to you. And then he walked away. Now, this may very well be true, right? But let's consider the option that since it's an unnamed homeless guy, we can't confirm that. Also, that testimony needs to be on the record. So if that testimony is on the record, that homeless guy must have a name. Additionally, there's probably some type of video footage if it happened in the parking lot of Walmart.
Hey, and one last thing I'm gonna say. We talked about this at the school on the Shabbat.
Yeah.
So you telling me This man from Chicago
Right.
wanted to kill himself. So he drove past all those rural areas of Chicago, around Chicago, through all of those states, 11, 12 hours to North Carolina,
Mm.
and said, you know what? I'm going to do my job and deliver this load before I do this. Number two, he just so happened to drive to a racist-ass city.
Right.
Anybody from around the way know about Henderson.
Right.
We listen, quiet as it's kept, these bigger cities in North Carolina be racist. Quiet as it's kept.
Yeah.
So these little cities are worse. You
Right.
went to a racist ass city to kill yourself in a way that racists kill niggas.
Mm.
And you want me to believe that? No.
Nah.
I refuse, man. But I'm gonna let you keep going, bro. I'm gonna get back to it, but that's crazy. I had to hop on, man, because we gotta think, man. We gotta think, bro. Everything ain't simple as it seems, man.
Nah, it's not. Hey, I appreciate you jumping on, King.
You already know. Shalom.
All right, Shalom. Right, we're gonna keep going. Look at this. A brother sent me another precept. This is Lamentations chapter 4, verse 18. They hunt our steps, that we cannot go in our streets. Our end is near, our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. Our persecutors are swifter than the eagles of the heaven. They pursued us upon the mountains. They laid wait for us in the wilderness. Right? Now, I want to bring this out as well. I've been I ain't been able to take my eyes off this case, man. It's been messing with me. Right? Look at this. This is the next question. If he hung himself in the tree, how did his body get out of the tree? So by the time the 911 call is made, the caller says, there's a guy who hung himself in a tree. The caller is not close. He sees this from across because he's cutting the grass in the adjacent lot, and there's a yard there where he's cutting the grass or whatever like that. And he looks over and he sees, oh man, it's a person over there, and he sees the rope. So he calls in the 911 call. And his testimony is in another video that I've seen. I'm going to attempt to share a video here. Right? Because y'all need to see this. The type of things, I'm not going to be able to share it right now, but it's fine. The type of things that they want you to believe is impossible to believe. Now, does that necessitate that this case or the way that the case has been presented so far is not necessarily the truth? No, right? This is all circumstantial. These are questions that I'm raising. These are allegations that we are investigating, right? And we have free speech to do so. Look at this. This is the next one. How did he hang himself in the tree? Now, when you, if you go back to the video of where Lee Merritt, the civil rights attorney, came down to speak to the public in the press conference, that happened on yesterday. That's on ABC 11. Y'all go check that out. Live video, ABC 11. So when you go watch that video, they said that the tree limb was 8 feet off the ground. To give you context, if you stand up straight and you're a 5'10" person like I am, and you reach your hand directly up in the air, you can reach your hand to the level of 8 feet. Right? You can reach your hand to the level of 8 feet. Most people. So this is not far off the ground. Okay? Also, if you see the tree limb that he allegedly hung himself from, it's too small. That's another thing. Why is the media not releasing the images of the tree to the public? If you're going to hang somebody from a tree, we got plenty of hanging trees out here in North Carolina. Right? That a small tree like that is not the type of tree you're going to do it from. Now, watch this. If he hung himself and he jumped down and the rope untied, how did he land with his back against the tree? That's what Judah said earlier, right? How does your body fall from hanging and land perfectly with your back against the tree? And after you fell, the rope is still around your neck, but it's untied. Okay. Now, I want to go into something else here. I got a couple of things that I wanted to read. So in the U.S., laws and penalties are usually defined in the federal law by the United States Code, right? Which is USC. So you'll see like USC 13 or whatever like that. And in states like North Carolina, by their own laws, the USC covers federal laws on crimes and their punishment, while North Carolina's laws, like the general statutes, outline state-specific laws. Now, with that being said, we currently have no laws that define or clearly define what a lynching is. Why is this important? As I pointed out earlier, the sheriff of Vance County, Curtis Brain, preliminarily came out and said this was no lynching. Knowing that there is no legal definition or agreed upon definition colloquially of the word lynching. So when he said that the noose was not tied around his neck, therefore it was not a lynching, that's crazy, because we can point out plenty of lynchings that happened that did not involve a noose around the neck. Rodney King being one very public and common example, right? So if you're saying that in order for it to be classified as a lynching, I need to see the statute. I need to see the U.S. code that defines that, right? We need to see that. Otherwise, don't get out and play with people's family members and tell them that you know the conclusion of a murder trial or a murder case, pardon me, before the autopsy results can reveal the cause of death. Right? This is why we're calling for this petition. Right? Now, question number one, and I'm going to jump off. I got a couple of questions that I need Vance County to answer. Right? Given the limited evidence currently available in the ongoing investigation, as well as the pending release to the public of the autopsy results, how can the sheriff confidently assert and publicly declare that this incident was not a lynching, particularly considering the lack of clear and definitive definitions of the word lynching? Right? I need him to recognize and publicly say that he understands the damage that can be done when you say there was no lynching in Vance County before the results are released. This makes the public feel like no matter what happens, you've already come up with the conclusion even before the evidence is presented, right? There's only two alternatives here. Either he already knows information that the public does not know, and therefore he made his determination that this was not a lynching, or he is preliminarily calling it not a lynching. Those are the two only options, right? And both of those are bad options right now. Question number two, given the autopsy findings of hemorrhaging in the neck area and the broken neck and the presence of rope around his neck, even though it wasn't tied, how are investigators interpreting the scenario where he was found deceased with a rope no longer secured around his neck? How are they looking at this? When they show up and the rope is no longer around his neck, how are they looking at that evidence? We need to know the answer to that, right? Does this not suggest the involvement of an outside individual who may have been present after his potential suffocation to untie the rope, right? We need to know the answer to that. Have investigators considered the possibility that other individuals may have been involved, right? And then finally, these are the demands. These are the demands that we're making on this petition. Once again, circulate this as much as you can. This is the main demand. We understand, we, the undersigned, demand accountability and justice in the case of Javion Magee. If it's determined that this was a hate crime or a lynching or a murder by an outside person, we call for immediate removal of the sheriff from the office for failing to accurately represent the case to the public. Right? We also have demands for the federal government. We call upon the federal government to establish a standardized definition of lynching, to categorize such crimes specifically targeting our community. Mere classification as hate crimes is inadequate. We demand substantial penalties for lynching to deter individuals and organizations from committing such acts in the future. The second demand, we demand transparency from the sheriff's office and the SBI regarding the basis for the investigative conclusions in the case of Javion Magee, even though the autopsy conclusions were not yet available. Even though the autopsy conclusions were not yet available. We seek clarification on how a crime with apparent racial motivations can be initially misclassified as a regular murder or a suicide investigation. In this case, if this case is determined to be a homicide, we demand a thorough investigation to uncover the true nature of this crime and any potential links to racism. We deserve to live in communities free from the influence of these type of organizations or individuals, and we expect our elected officials to uphold justice and present only verified facts to the public, right? So once again, we appreciate y'all, man. We're not going to let this go. If we got to pull up boots on the ground, y'all already know we're going to do it. All right? Love y'all. Shalom.